What's up, guys? Today, I want to do a little bit of something special, you guys know how much I love Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. It's probably one of my favorite game of the year, if not of the decade. It has its problem, for sure. But, it's not that bad. Let's be honest here. I loved it. I'm sure many of you loved it too. It is confusing. It is hard. But today, what I'm going to do is something kind of weird. I'm going to react to some of the bad reviews for the game. Now, I filtered through some of them, and some of them are very valid. Like, you'll have bad reviews about the game just not running properly, or some bad reviews that were made a while ago, while the game was not being patched properly, because while it didn't release in a bad of a state as Kingmaker, it was not the perfect release. With that being said, the game's pretty good now. I like it. So let's dive into a few bad reviews and I'll just react to them and I'll read them to you guys. So let's get this. The first one with 316 hours on record. Not recommending the game, by the way. Hey bro, want a challenge? Here, take those enemies with plus 10 AB for no reasons above what's supposed to be on a certain level. Enemies 10 levels higher than your party levels, 4 or 5 attack per round out of the box, when your average character can do 1 or 2 without haste or bite. Encounters when you feel enemies breathing at you after a cutscene, since the game decides when you should stay when a fight begins. And by the way, forget about hitting without rolling 20. And yeah, spells not gonna work as well until you spam 20 of them and start to pray to RNGesus that some of them will overcome the spell resistance. An enemy is gonna roll 2 or 3 Lamau. So, I can understand the game being hard. I can understand people being mad at the game being hard. But you can't play on difficulty above normal while not doing your research. That's kind of just how the game is, and that's fine. That's fine. You can play on lower difficulties. Just, if you're gonna shit on the game for it, I suggest you just look at guides, right? By the time you wrote this thing, you could have learned that there's something called spell penetration that foregoes all of what you just said, and it's fine. Kingmaker was bullshit sometimes. Low-level progression felt kinda awful, but now Kingmaker's looks pretty smooth compared to what we got here. So the reason for that, the reason why they made enemies that hard is because I feel like the game just has to be harder, right? You're so much stronger than Kingmaker. You've got so much more talents and so much more powers because of the mythic progression. You cannot fight low enemies because that would just feel awful, And I'm not shitting on this guy for writing the review. I'm sure after 300 more hours into the game, he probably has a different opinion and he learned a few things. It's just that I feel like the game's great, but you do have to make your research. And if you don't want to do it, you can play on like story mode when it's like literally impossible to fail, I think. I don't know. Anyways. Class build story so far, dialogue wise game, good, but encounter designs seem weird since it forces you into a save scum instead of playing the game just because stars should align to make you win. So in turn-based game, and I'm playing on turn-based, so I'm gonna look at it from a turn-based perspective. It's a mental battle, right? You can just right-click the enemy and hope everything's gonna go well. At least not on difficulties past normal. Now, I understand it can be really frustrating because the game is a new system and if you've never played D&D on top of everything, it's really, really hard. I just don't know, man. Do you recommend this game? Yes, but no. I regret spending time and money for the game in its current state. Gonna hope that Allcat gonna think about their approach to encounters design and give us difficulty instead of difficulty. What? And fix it to be at least on a Kingmaker level, which I really like. I don't know, like, this guy's problem with the difficulty, I think it's... I'm not trying to shit on the guy, I'm not calling him stupid or anything. I just feel like if you're gonna shit on the game's difficulty, at least read some guides. And I'm sure he did, I'm sure he did, because he spent 316 hours after that. Anyways, next review. A game that gives you a million options, then tells you that like a handful are viable. Weird difficulty spikes all over the place. You steamrolled human enemy, but unfortunately, most enemies are demons, which shrug off 90% of magic attack and are immune to a staggering numbers of martial abilities. Sadly, the same can be said of your own party, regardless of the makeup, and the Crusade mode is incredibly lame. Great for min-maxer or people who playstyle fits into a narrow confine of what is effective, but not nearly as fun as the previous Pathfinder. Although that too was made 1,000 times better with mods for quality of life improvement. Yeah, so I will agree with that partly. The game does give you 1,000 options, and then like few of them are gonna work out if you're gonna play on core or higher. Once again, no one cares if you're playing on lower difficulties. It's just that kind of game. No one's gonna care, right? Of course, some spells that are really cool are just not gonna work, and if you want them to work, well, they're probably gonna work if you lower the difficulty. It's kind of weird, right? It's like there's no cookie cutter build because there's so many builds out there, but I understand where this guy's coming from. The Crusade mode isn't lame. They needed, I think, to make a way to make you feel like you're the commander of an army, right? Without having grand scale battle. I think this is the best they could do in short time, because that wasn't their focus for sure. They just want to give you a feel for it. And the Crusade projects are needed, right? For the game's progression, for you to feel like you matter and whatnot. So I feel like the Crusade's mode is okay, you know? Of course, the game will get a ton of quality of life improvement. For sure. But I do feel like the difficulties, you know, just lower it, man. If it's all that's preventing you from enjoying the game, I feel like really you should just lower it. I'm just gonna do this little thing, boop. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with lowering the difficulty. I did it a few times. Hell, the fucking tavern fight, I lowered it all the time. Next review says, it's a wonderful CRPG, but that also has a mandatory shit RTS section that is an absolute slug, that if you decide to use the auto mode, will ask you to wait 100 of days in game time, of which you can only skip manually one at a time, for it to fall. Since you are not directly heading this tedious operation, they put in the single stupidest person to do it for you. I suppose at least accurate to how they portray Mendev. So I have not tried to just let the Crusade on auto mode because that seemed like a terrible idea. In Kingmaker, if you did that, you could actually lose the game. Straight up, you could just lose the game, and that would be really, really bad. Yes, the Mendevian argument is true. The politicians do seem like shit. I wish the section was on RTS, man. I wish it was an RTS. RTS, for those who don't know, stands for real-time strategy, like StarCraft, which I played way too much of, and that would have been really fun. Kind of like a Total War Warhammer kind of style, but that wasn't in their budget for sure. It can be a slug. I agree, but I think for the game to make sense, even if you put it on easy mode or like you mod it so the things only resolve in one day, which I'm pretty sure you can do, but that's fair because not everybody want to mod. But I think it's just an important part of the game, you know? Sadly, some people don't like it, and that's fair. But I still feel like to enjoy the game to its fullest, you kind of need to do them. The next review, we have 2 left, and I just want to make this quick video for fun, you know? I don't know how the publisher makes games that are so good, but also so bad at the same time. I bought this game after working through Kingmaker, which was inexplicably punishing at times. I assumed they would have worked out the kinks in this version, but no, not completely. For that reason, I wouldn't really recommend this to someone. If you like CRPGs, RPGs, specifically D&D, Pathfinder, maybe you will enjoy the slug, but just be ready to drop the difficulty when any boss shows up. You can max out buff with a variety of skills and spell, but if you don't have that one spell, you're not gonna win this fight. Also, things are so overtuned that I have to reduce the damage to my party by half, and a boss still one-shot my off-tank with at least 140 damage. Really ruins the immersion or epic feeling when you have to drop the difficulty to 0 to get anything major accomplished. So, I mean, I buffed the hell out of my party, and I very rarely had to drop the difficulty from core or hard. That being said, not everybody is in the same boat here, but I always will recommend for this game, if you're not familiar with anything D&D or Pathfinder related, or just a little bit, you know, start at a lower difficulty. There's nothing wrong with that, and you can level it up as things go if you find it too easy, but start lower, like normal or lower. For your first playthrough, the game is so good that you don't have to do it on hard the first playthrough. You can do it on hard the second playthrough, and guess what? You can do a completely other way, and you're gonna keep things fresh because you keep gonna challenging yourself. The dungeon at the end of Act 2 took me 10 plus hours to get through. I don't know why that's necessary. Make it smaller, it doesn't feel epic, it's just exhausting. At that point, and super silly, I had to rest about 6 or 8 times because of all the insane debuffs you get. I don't know how you play the game without debuff resetting on rest. So many other things they should have fixed between Kingmaker and this, and it feels like they only learn a small portion. You shouldn't have to wait 5 minutes after combat for a character to pass a reflex save to avoid its own spell. I think I'll finish the game because I know it spits fall and can navigate around them, but I don't really know how much I'm enjoying it. Bro, you have played 100 more hours after this review, so I think you figured out the game correctly, and if you did, I'm glad for you. The dungeon at the end of Act 2, what was that dungeon? Act 1 is the underneath. Act 2 is a Grey Garrison. Wow, the Grey Garrison took you 10 hours? I don't know, man. And you can reset the debuff for sure. And if you want to wait 5 minutes after combat for a character to pass the reflex save to avoid my own spells, you can either, one, dispel that spell. There's a spell that just dispels any spell you've casted. I'm assuming you're talking about Grease here, because Grease, it's that, right? Or you can just click the wait an hour button. That works too. And the restoration and everything. Obviously, if you don't want to buff, if you don't want to do anything, lower the difficulty and enjoy the game as well, right? Not everybody is going to play these games to the max. And like I said, if you just started at a lower difficulty, you would have learned all of this before your next playthrough, which is fine, you know. People are made to learn. It's just, I find it weird that people just like to complain a lot about these kinds of games, and then they just complain about it and don't want to learn. But hey, that's all there is. The final review. Oh, there's 2 more. Never mind. Review number 5 that I found was, it's too much for me. So much time being spent in character sheet, abilities, and inventory. World setting is great, but way too much reading as well. Way too complicated. I shouldn't have googled to look for build and mechanics explanations. I understand that for hardcore player, this is the game, but if you are not 100% nerd, maybe try games like Divinity or Dragon Age Origin. That's fair. That's fair. I'm gonna size it up a little bit for you guys. That's fair, you know, not everybody's gonna like this game. I do hope that you'll finish it someday, but not everybody's gonna like this game for sure. I think it's on the game's marketing fault for that. Like, this is the game for hardcore people. Pathfinder was made by people who just thought 3.5 edition of D&D was too complicated. Was complicated enough, and that 4th edition, which made things a lot more simple, just went the wrong way. And they went the opposite way. They made things really, really hard. Really, really complicated for literally everything. That's why the game is so complicated and so hard and so gimmicky and so buffy, and you need to like dispel debuff like crazy and reflex save and everything. That's why the game exists like that in its way, because that's how Pathfinder was made. It's a community made thing, and that's just how it is. Yeah, I hope you find games you like, man. I hope you find games you like, and I think that should be like a staple board. I think this review is a perfect review to be like, hey guys, by the way, watch out, this game is hard. Anyways, the final review is a concise one. I only took the TLDR because it was a great review, actually. I agree with mostly of this review, and I understand why you gave it a negative review. Now, all the ones before, I kind of didn't understand why you complain instead of just starting the game, but this one actually has a good point. A lot of them. So I'll go with the TLDR. He starts by explaining the pros of the game. Expensive, literally 100+ hour long campaign. Varied and well-developed cast of companion. Unafraid to focus on moral, extreme, and holding the PC to their action, including both their choices in grander schemes of the Crusade, as well as mechanically by radically changing the environment, the party, the hub, and everything. A pro is also Camellia for some reason. The guy is weird, but look, that's your choice. Now, things he doesn't know if it's plus or minus, pros or cons, that it's to your discretion, I guess. Kingdom management has been streamlined and integrated into a new mechanic of managing Crusade armies. I think that's a plus because if you played Kingmaker, you know that shit was hard. Attempts at gimmicky map design, Act 4, may be off-putting given the large amount of time players is going to spend needing to engage with it. That's true. Act 4 was cute. I'm not gonna spoil what it is for those watching this, but Act 4 was cute. The map was a bit weird, but I applaud the game being unapologetic about it. They put it in front of you, and they're just like, hey, that's it, man. That's it. Content provided through the different mythic paths vary wildly. While certain paths feel almost canonical, others may be disappointed by how much they influence the grander story, especially when directly compared to other paths. That's true, completely. I did Lich Mythic Path, that was great. I think the other paths that feel like they're canonical are Demon and Angel. I think all the rest, you're gonna be a little bit disappointed in how they are. Aeon as well. Swarm That Walks was a slug and very badly implemented. I just did it because I liked the look of the character. I didn't really like it that much. Dungeon design is very reminiscent of Kingmaker in that the game is overflowing with enemies encounter and, at times, frustrating and out-of-place feeling puzzle. Yeah, the puzzle sucked, man. That's a minus, for sure. The puzzle really sucked. The minuses, and those are all fair points, and if you don't know if you're buying the game or not and you're using this as a review, this is the most fair you're gonna get about it, okay? This is the most true you're gonna get about it, so I'm gonna get into it. Technical issues, FPS overheating, performance decay. Yeah, the game leaks video RAM, which is what your video card uses, like crazy. So after like 5 hours, you need to reset the game entirely or it's just gonna lag forever. The technical issues are there. I see people talking about the game not working on their machine if they don't have like somewhat of a good video card. So be careful if you're on a lower end PC, make sure your PC works with it. It's written in the Steam thing, like at the bottom of the Steam things in general. So be sure to check that out. Probably has more bugs and miscellaneous gameplay quirks than words in its script, broken animation, quest, cutscene, incredibly poor pathing, and AI. I think this was mostly fixed, but it's true. The bugs are there. They are less than Kingmaker at release. When it released, I knew it would be in a better state than Kingmaker. I just didn't know how much better it would be than Kingmaker. So, yeah. Many of which have been presented since Pathfinder Kingmaker. Yeah, that's just the nature of the game, but a lot of them have been patched. And I will say, my last playthrough, I only encountered one game-breaking bug, so that's pretty cool. Infamously poor balance in both regular adventure gameplay as well as Crusade management. That's true, but it's meant to be like, hey, you're getting really strong, but the enemies have the same technology as you do. Well, technology, powers. So be careful, right? Be careful is what it means. Players are being punished for wanting to not engage with the Crusade management, despite it being offered as a regular tweak of difficulty. The ramifications are not nearly clear enough and could prove to be frustrating realization 10 of hours into a playthrough. Yeah. I think the Crusade management could use some work, especially in the auto mode. I think you should just succeed everything. You don't have to wait. You don't have to do anything. You just do whatever, right? I think that's how it should work, but it's not clearly from a lot of people talking about it. Though I will say, I think for the full experience of the game, you should slug through it, as many of those reviews said. So there you have it, folks. The game is great, but it can feel unbalanced if you're unaccustomed to the D&D and Pathfinder rule set. For that matter, I would recommend starting on the lower difficulty and going up as the game progresses. Also, the Crusade management is the worst thing ever, but I do recommend you go through it for sure. And lastly, there are technical issues. Be sure your machine can run it. And I will be honest, try to fast forward the most you can on your first playthrough to stay within the refund window. If ever you see it starts failing. That's gonna be it for me today, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow with some more gameplay of Baldur's Gate. If you're here in this video, like till now, please comment, like, subscribe, whatever you want. I'll be putting out more of those videos. I just wanted to have fun today, so there you have it, folks. I'll see you guys very soon. See ya.